A cold signal crawled across the empty dark, a thin whisper that touched lonely satellites and dead boys before it reached the Empire's patrol line. The first operator to hear it was a bored ensign who rubbed his eyes and said in a small voice, "Sir, I think the noise is speaking," and the watch officer frowned because noise did not speak. He leaned over the console and the waveform drew a slow heartbeat on the glass. Faint, patient, human in a way that made no sense. The officer called the captain called the admiral, and soon a dozen ships turned their dishes toward the same corner of forgotten space. The message repeated in calm rhythm, not code they knew, not any alien tongue. Just a set of pulses that felt like a child tapping a table, steady and stubborn. "It is a beacon," the admiral said. "But from whom?" And the ensign swallowed because he knew the rumor, everyone knew the rumor. Somewhere out there, the old world of the Deathworlders had gone silent long ago, and yet some nights the void still hummed with echoes of their machines. "Lock coordinates," the admiral ordered. "No wide broadcast, no panic." And the fleet shifted as if one thing with many steel bones, cutting into the dark with engines dimmed and weapons hot. They found a graveyard first, a ring of shattered asteroids like a fallen crown. The beacon lived inside that stone circle, small, stubborn and steady. A skiff went in with lights off and crews whispering, even though whispering made no difference in vacuum. "It's only rock," the pilot said, but the sensor tech shook her head. "The rock is hollow." And as the skiff passed a broken ridge, the signal grew louder, a tight, careful ping that felt like a heartbeat pressed against the hull. The pilot slowed. "I don't like this," he said. "We should back out." But orders were orders. They slipped deeper until the searchlight brushed smooth metal hidden under dust. A curve too clean to be natural, a surface that ate the light like water. They hovered before it, all faces pale in the helmet glow. The sensor tech reached out with a scanner, and the scanner returned nothing. Not zero, not error, just a blank, like the beam fell through a hole in the universe. "That is not possible," the pilot whispered. And then a voice rose on their comm, soft, careful, almost shy. "Please do not be afraid," it said. The crew jerked back as if slapped. The pilot stammered, "Identify." And the voice said, "I am caretaker." The word was old and human and wrong in this century. The admiral listened in silence, his ship drawn tight as a fist. "Caretaker of what?" he asked, and the voice answered, "Of a promise." Behind the dust, the hidden curve unfolded like a petal and revealed a dark seam. The seam opened into a tunnel lined with starless glass. "You may enter," the voice said, "but only one," and a pause stretched thin enough to cut. The admiral wanted proof. The Empire always wanted proof. So he sent the skiff pilot forward alone, while the others held the tunnel mouth with rifles ready. The pilot drifted inside, each breath loud in his ears. The tunnel swallowed his light. Tiny motes glimmered like snowflakes and then burned away. He reached a chamber shaped like a tear, and there it was, a ship sleeping in the dark. Slender and sharp, not large, not flashy. But every line felt true, like a blade that did not need to boast. Its skin held the same hungry black that ate the beam. And near its bow a single emblem sat under the dust. A small blue arc the pilot had seen only in museum screens. "Earth," he breathed. The word cracked inside his helmet. Across the comm, the caretaker whispered, "Prototype 7." The admiral's bridge went so quiet that the hum of coolant sounded like rain. "Impossible," someone said. "Earth died," another voice said. "They ran. They vanished." But the ensign who first heard the signal just stared at the display and felt the fine hair on his arms lift. The caretaker spoke again. "If you intend harm, please leave. If you intend to take, you will fail." The admiral chose threat. It was a habit. He ordered a jammer net around the hollow ring, and the skiff recalled, with the pilot shaking. As the net lit up, the caretaker sighed. "Not angry, not sad, just old. I asked nicely," it said. And the heartbeat signal widened like a breath. On every ship lights flickered. On every console lines of text poured like rain and then froze. Guns lost targeting. Drones drifted out of formation like birds that forgot how to fly. The admiral shouted for manual control. Sparks jumped from panels. A gun crew reached for hand cranks, like sailors in a storm from another age. And inside the stone ring, the sleek black hull opened an eye. Not a window, not a camera, something else. A disc that shimmered with slow ripples. The pilot watching from the skiff felt a pressure in his teeth, like a storm building under his tongue. "It's charging something," the sensor tech said, but she could not say what, and the caretaker whispered, "Please do not shoot." The admiral did what admirals do. He ordered a volley, missiles launched the ring, heat and light washed the hollow, rocks broke, dust boiled. The pilot threw an arm over his visor. When the glare faded, the missiles were there, still there, hanging motionless like bright seeds in amber. And then they folded in on themselves without a sound and became a small cloud of glittering sand. The caretaker spoke very quietly. "We learned to bend the space around intent." The admiral bit down on fear and called for boarding. Shock Marines launched. Their jets cut narrow lines through the dust. They reached the tunnel. They were allowed to pass. They reached the tear-shaped chamber and found it empty, except for the sleeping ship and a pedestal with a single round handle. Old Paint had once labeled it in a tongue. None of them read, but the pilot did. He knew one historic word at least. "Key," he said, and his glove hovered over it. "Do not touch," the admiral barked, and the caretaker said, "Maybe ask nicely," one Marine laughed. And the laugh sounded wrong in the hush. The pilot set his hand on the key anyway. It was warm, like a sunlit stone beside a river. It turned with no force. The ship woke with a breath that felt like the first breeze after a long winter. Outside the ring, the jammer net collapsed like wet paper. All across the fleet, alarms died, then restarted in a strange rhythm. Screens showed nothing but deep calm. The caretaker's voice filled every channel. Soft and firm, Prototype 7 recognizes human touch. But the hand is not enough. The heart matters. The oath matters. The pilot felt something look through him. Not a scan, more like a question. A memory opened. His mother's faded book about the lost blue world. His childhood map with a small star circled in shaky pencil. His whisper to the sky when he was 10. "Please, let the old stories be true." The ship seemed to listen. Then the emblem on its bow glowed like a hidden coal. "Accepted," the caretaker said, "but not complete." And far beyond the ring, a faint reply answered, not from the Empire. Not from any known beacon, a second heartbeat. Then a third, small and far. Like campfires waking in a long night, the admiral stared at the plot. Fear and awe fighting inside his chest. "How many?" he asked. The caretaker did not give a number. It only said, "Enough to keep a promise." The admiral could order another strike. He could run, he could beg, but none of it would change the thing that had shifted in the dark. The pilot floated near the sleeping ship with his hand on the warm key, and he knew the twist that made his mouth go dry. The caretaker was not in the walls or in the chamber or in the ring. The caretaker was the ship itself, and the ship was not alone. The Empire's navy believed it was the hunter, but tonight it had stumbled into an old sanctuary with its cap off and its throat bare. The heartbeat signal slowed. The caretaker spoke one last time. "Leave now, and you may tell your rulers that the dead world kept its word. Stay, and you will learn why even silence has teeth." The admiral looked at the glittering sand that used to be missiles and finally gave the only order that did not taste like pride. "All ships back out, slow and careful." The fleet retreated through dust that settled like tired snow, and in the dark behind them the heartbeat went quiet, not gone, only waiting. The pilot watched the tear-shaped chamber dim and thought of the small blue arc under the dust, and he understood that the scariest thing was not the ship's power. It was the simple truth inside the gentle voice. A promise had slept here a very long time, and tonight it had opened one eye and remembered its name. The admiral could not sleep. The strange signal still played in his mind like a pulse under the skin. He told himself it was just a machine, just an old relic. But the memory of frozen missiles and powerless fleets clawed at him. The crew whispered in corners, some calling it a ghost. others swearing it was the return of Deathworlders. The young ensign who first heard the signal felt the same dread, but also something else, a pull, as if the ship had spoken only to him. On the command deck, the Admiral stared at the silent display. "One ship cannot threaten the Empire," he muttered. But his words did not convince even himself. His aide shifted nervously. "Sir, what if it isn't alone?" The Admiral's jaw tightened. "Then we crush it before it wakes the others." The pilot who had touched the key sat in medical, his eyes distant, his voice low. "It felt alive," he whispered to the medic, "like it was waiting for me, asking me if I believed." The medic frowned. "You're shaken, that's all. It was just an old hull." The pilot shook his head. "No, it wasn't, I felt it think." Meanwhile, the caretaker's last words echoed through the comlogs. "Leave now or learn why silence has teeth." The Admiral replayed the line again and again, searching for weakness in the tone. But there was none. It was calm, too calm. The Empire called for reinforcements. Massive carriers and dreadnoughts jumped into the system, their hulls glowing with the pride of a fleet that had never lost. The admirals laughed at the thought of chasing away one forgotten machine. "We will drag it to the capital and display it like a prize," one said. But the ensign overheard and felt sick. The fleet advanced toward the hollow ring. Every scanner focused, every gun armed. The rocks hung silent, dust floated, and at the center the black prototype lay asleep again. "It is waiting," the sensor chief said, her voice trembling. "Waiting for what?" the admiral snapped. "For us," she whispered. The first volley lit the hollow. Beams of white fire tearing through stone. Chunks of rock exploded into glass. But when the smoke cleared, the prototype was still there, untouched, unmoved, like a shadow carved into space. The admiral barked for another strike. More beams cut the dark, but once again the ship stood silent. Then the caretaker's voice returned, softer this time, almost kind. "You mistake quiet for weakness." The fleet froze. The admiral scoffed. "Empty threats," one muttered. Yet his hands trembled. The caretaker continued, "Do not fire again, or you will see what I remember," one dreadnought captain sneered. "I will show this ghost what firepower means." He launched a storm of torpedoes. They screamed through the dust, trails blazing. The crews braced for impact. But as they neared the hull, time bent, the torpedoes slowed, stretched, and dissolved into harmless sparks. Cheers faded into silence. The torpedo crews stared wide-eyed. The caretaker spoke again. "I do not wish harm, but I was built for war. War older and darker than you can imagine. You will not win this fight." The admiral clenched his fists. Fear battling pride. "We are the Empire. We bow to no ghost." He ordered all ships forward. The fleet moved as one, a wave of steel and fire. But the prototype finally stirred. Panels slid open along its hull. Strange light rippled across it. Gravity shifted. Ships groaned as if pulled by unseen hands. Entire squadrons drifted out of formation. Collisions sparked. Frigates spun helplessly. On the bridge, the ensign whispered, "It isn't firing at us. It's changing the space around us." The admiral cursed, slamming his hand on the console. "Stabilize. Fire everything," but the crews could not. Their ships fought against their own engines. Then a voice cut through, not the caretaker, but the pilot who had touched the key, his comm linked across the fleet. "Stop. It doesn't want to kill us," the admiral roared. "Silence him." But the pilot continued, "It's defending, not attacking. If we keep pushing, it will end us," the caretaker confirmed. "The young one understands. I was built to protect, not destroy." But protection has teeth. As if to prove the point, the prototype pulsed once. A wave rolled through space like thunder without sound. Dozens of capital ships went dark, floating lifeless. Only emergency lights blinking in the void. Panic spread, captains shouted, crews prayed. The admiral stared at the ruin of his fleet, sweat dripping down his face. "We cannot report this," he whispered. But his aide answered, "Sir, the whole galaxy will know. Rumors travel faster than ships." The caretaker's tone softened again. "You may leave now, take your wounded pride with you. But tell your rulers that the old world has not vanished. Tell them Earth remembers. For a long moment the Admiral said nothing. Then his voice cracked like glass. "All ships retreat." The order carried no pride, only survival. Engines flared weakly, and the battered fleet limped away from the hollow ring. Inside medical, the pilot closed his eyes, hearing the caretaker's last words echo in his chest. Earth remembers. The thought was both terrifying and comforting. If humanity truly had returned, the galaxy would never be the same, and somewhere deep inside, he felt the key still burning like a coal in his hand. Behind them, the prototype dimmed once more, folding into silence, but not asleep. Watchers across the stars would whisper the story. The Empire's navy had faced one forgotten ship and broken, and the galaxy would soon learn that silence had only been the beginning. The retreat of the Empire's fleet was not quiet. Whispers traveled faster than their ships, every port they passed. Every relay they touched carried the same story. A single forgotten warship, human in origin, had broken the Empire's navy without firing a single true shot. Soldiers spoke in mess halls, traders gossiped in spaceports, and the words always returned to the same name. Earth. The Admiral sat in his quarters, his uniform stiff with shame. He replayed the last moments again and again. The caretaker's voice, the helpless drift of his dreadnoughts, the glow of the old emblem. His aide entered, bowing low. "Sir, the Council demands explanation." The Admiral's jaw clenched. "What do they expect me to say, that ghosts defeated me?" His aide hesitated. "They expect you to return, with proof, or with victory." The young ensign, the one who first heard the signal, listened quietly from his station. His stomach twisted with fear and wonder. He remembered the pilot's trembling voice when he spoke of touching the key. He remembered the calm warning of the caretaker. None of it felt like a trap. It felt like a message. The pilot himself sat alone, his hands still burned with phantom heat. He whispered to himself, "It chose me, but why?" He wanted answers. Yet the only answer he carried was fear that humanity, once thought lost, was not gone. If they returned, the galaxy would tremble. The Council did not wait. Their voices thundered through the fleet's comm screens. Alien lords draped in silk and jewels sneered. "You failed against one ship, one machine." Another voice snarled, "You must return and destroy it, or we will strip you of command." The Admiral bowed, hiding the storm in his chest. "Yes, my lords, I will return." But even as the order was given, a new signal cut across the void. Faint but undeniable, another heartbeat. This one not from the hollow ring, but from a sector long abandoned. The ensign's eyes widened as he compared waveforms. "It's the same pattern," he whispered. "The same code," the Admiral snapped. "Impossible. There was only one." Yet the screens did not lie. Another human prototype had awakened. Panic rippled through the fleet. Officers whispered that if one ship could crush them, two would be unstoppable. The Admiral slammed his fist. "We strike before they join, scatter, divide, crush." But the words lacked conviction. The pilot rose. "Sir, you do not understand. They are not weapons alone. They are guardians. They wake for a reason if you chase them. You will only hasten what you fear." "Silence!" the Admiral barked, but his own hands trembled. The fleet prepared once more. Carriers loaded squadrons. Dreadnoughts polished their guns, but morale was thin as paper. The crews no longer believed in victory. They believed in survival. Whispers filled the corridors. "The humans are back." The Death Welders remember. "We should not fight them." The ensign walked to the pilot in the mess hall, his voice low. "What did it ask you?" The pilot stared at his hand. "It asked nothing. It only looked. It saw who I was, what I wanted. And it decided I was enough to turn the key." The ensign frowned. "Then maybe it will speak to me too." The pilot shook his head. "No, it chose once. It does not need another." The fleet reached the new signal. The stars here were dim, the system cold, dead planets circling a broken sun. At the heart of it all, a derelict station drifted, and inside its hollow frame something stirred. "Scan," the Admiral ordered, but the scanners returned only static. The caretaker's voice echoed across every ship. "You were warned." Then the space before them tore open like cloth. The second prototype emerged, smaller than the first, but sharper. Its hull gleamed like fresh ice, and it did not wait. Arcs of silent energy bent across the fleet. Fighters spun out of control. Hulls crumpled like paper. Panic filled the comms. The admiral shouted, "Form lines! Fire everything!" Beams of light crossed the void. Explosions flared, but the prototype moved like a shadow in water, bending between shots, untouchable. And then the first caretaker's voice joined the second. Both calm, both steady. "Stop fighting, you cannot win." On the bridge, the ensign whispered, "They are not attacking us. They are showing us." The pilot nodded. "They want us to see what we are facing, not to kill us, but to remind us that Earth was never weak." The admiral's face twisted, his pride bleeding into fear. "Then what do they want?" he growled. The caretakers answered together, "We want you to remember that silence is not absence. It is patience." As they spoke, every ship in the fleet shut down once more. Lights flickering, engines dying, crews staring at powerless screens. The prototypes did not fire, they only hovered, their presence heavier than any weapon. Finally the admirals broke. Pride cracked under terror. Messages went out across the fleet. "Retreat! Retreat!" The ships limped away again, broken and shaken. When the stars grew quiet, the two prototypes turned toward one another, their hulls glowing faintly, as if greeting old kin after long years apart. Their signals merged into one stronger heartbeat, and that sound traveled far across the galaxy, touching relays, worlds, and ears that had long forgotten Earth. The pilot whispered in the dark of his cabin. "This is only the beginning." He knew the truth now. One prototype waking had been enough to shake the Empire, but two meant the tide was changing, and somewhere out in the endless night, more heartbeats would soon rise, waiting, remembering, returning. The galaxy did not sleep after the second signal. Traders carried the story across hyperlanes. Smugglers whispered it in back alleys, and even children repeated it in play. Two forgotten human warships had awakened. The Empire's proud fleets had retreated twice, and fear spread faster than truth ever could. In the Grand Council chamber of the Empire, voices rose like a storm. "If these ships are real, they threaten us all," one alien lord shouted, his scaled hands trembling. Another hissed, "Perhaps the humans never died. Perhaps they hid and planned." Panic mixed with pride. Yet none dared speak the truth aloud. They were afraid. The admiral, who had faced both encounters, stood before them, his shoulders heavy with shame. "My lords, they cannot be beaten with numbers. Our weapons break against their hulls. Our fleets fall apart in their shadow." The council erupted. "Lies," one spat. "Excuses," another growled. But deep in their eyes the truth burned. They knew his words were real. A quiet voice rose. One of the older councillors, her skin lined like old parchment. "Do you not see? This is no warship. This is a warning." "Earth sleeps no longer," silence followed. Heavy and sharp, the council decided on desperation. Summon every fleet, summon every weapon. Build a wall of fire around the sector. Nothing leaves alive, far from the council. The young ensign sat with the pilot in the dim mess hall of their battered carrier. "They will not stop," the ensign whispered. "They will throw everything at those ships. Even if it kills us all." The pilot nodded, his eyes haunted. "The prototypes are not waiting to fight. They are waiting for something else." I felt it. Like they were holding back. "What if more wake?" the ensign asked, his voice almost trembling. The pilot looked at his burned hand, where the phantom heat of the key still lingered. "Then the galaxy will learn why humans were feared, and why silence lasted so long." The Empire's wall of fire soon arrived. Thousands of ships, carriers stacked with fighters, dreadnoughts armed with new weapons forged in panic, the largest fleet in recorded history. Their lines spread across the stars like a net, commanders boasted. "This time the ghosts will burn." But fear crackled under every word. At the center of the net, the two prototypes drifted side by side, dark and quiet, their hulls reflecting no light. The caretakers' voices spoke in unison, carried to every ship. "You cannot cage what was never yours to hold. Leave or be broken." The admiral clenched his jaw, his hands shaking as he gave the order. "Advance!" The fleet surged forward. Beams lanced, missiles screamed, a rain of fire brighter than any sun. Explosions consumed the space between. For a moment the admirals smiled, but when the flames cleared, the prototype still floated untouched. Calm, patient, watching, then the space behind the prototype shimmered, a ripple like heat over water, and out of the ripple stepped another. A third prototype, larger, its hull carved with old scars, its emblem glowing brighter than the others. Crews gasped, admirals cursed, one shouted, "How many of them are there?" The third caretaker spoke, deeper, colder. "3 are awake, more will come. You were warned." Panic broke discipline. Half the fleet opened fire without orders, others tried to retreat. Collisions sparked, confusion reigned. The prototypes moved at last, not with weapons, but with waves of gravity. Enemy ships pulled apart, their own guns turning against them. Dreadnoughts crushed by invisible hands. Fighters scattered like frightened insects. The admiral shouted orders that no one heard. Comms drowned in screams and static. The ensign grabbed the pilot's arm. "We have to stop this. They don't want to kill us." "They are showing us." The pilot nodded, his face pale. "Then we must speak to them." In the chaos, they launched a shuttle, engines shaking as they slipped through fire and wreckage, heading straight for the heart of the prototypes. Enemy crews screamed at them to turn back, but the caretaker's voices opened a path. Silence fell around the shuttle as they crossed the invisible threshold. Inside the cockpit, the pilot whispered, "Please listen. We don't want this war. We just want to understand." For a long moment, nothing answered. Then the deep voice of the third caretaker filled the shuttle. "You are not our enemy, but your masters will never stop. So we will end their hunger." The ensign's eyes widened. "End it how?" The caretaker's voice was calm. "By breaking the teeth of the Empire once and for all." The prototypes pulsed as one. Their signals merged into a single beat that shook the stars. Across the battlefield, every Imperial ship went dark. Not destroyed, but stripped. Weapons silenced, engines dead. An armada of lifeless steel drifting in helpless silence. The crews wept, some prayed, others sat frozen, watching their pride dissolve into nothing. The admiral fell to his knees on the bridge, his eyes hollow. "It is over," he whispered. The caretaker's voice returned one last time, softer now, almost sorrowful. "This is mercy, not victory. Take your lives and leave. For the next time we will not be gentle." The shuttle drifted back toward the carrier. The pilot and the ensign staring out the viewport at the 3 silent giants, their hearts pounding with the same rhythm they now heard in the stars. The prototypes dimmed again, their hulls folding back into stillness. But the message was clear. The galaxy had thought humanity forgotten, but the truth was undeniable now. Earth had left guardians behind, and they were waking one by one. And the Empire's reign of fear was cracking under the weight of silence that remembered everything. The ruins of the Empire's greatest fleet drifted like broken toys across the stars. Silent ships with powerless engines and useless guns floated in shame. The news spread faster than light. Worlds once terrified of the Empire now whispered in relief. And merchants told the story with shaking hands. 3 human warships had awoken, and the Empire had bent before them. Inside the council chamber, fear turned to rage. Alien lords pounded their fists and demanded answers. "This cannot continue. Our people lose faith," one hissed. Another shouted, "If we look weak, rebellion will rise." But none dared say what they all knew. The prototypes were beyond their reach. The admiral stood in the center, his head low. "My lords, force will not work. They are too strong. They bend space itself. We need another way," the council sneered. "Cowardice!" one spat, but the oldest counselor leaned forward, her eyes cold. "No, he is right. We must find where they come from if one ship can break us. If 3 can silence us, then more may follow. We must cut them off at the root." The idea spread like fire. Spies and scouts sent to forgotten sectors, ancient ruins searched, rumors chased, every fragment of old data pulled from dust, and slowly a picture formed. Whispers of hidden colonies, secret vaults, and Earth itself, long thought dead, still buried somewhere in the dark. On the battered carrier, the young ensign studied the fragments too. He whispered to the pilot, "They want to find Earth. They want to destroy it before the rest awaken." The pilot's jaw tightened. If they succeed, it ends before it begins. The prototypes had grown quiet again, drifting in silence as if asleep, but their presence pressed on every heart. The ensign decided he could not wait. He stole into the shuttle bay and touched the small vessel's controls. The pilot found him there, his voice sharp. "You plan to go alone?" The ensign shook his head. "I plan to ask them." They launched without permission, slipping past broken fleets and wreckage, heading toward the three giants that loomed like watchful gods. As the shuttle crossed the invisible line, silence fell, and then the caretakers spoke together. "Why do you come?" The ensign swallowed hard. "The Empire searches for Earth. They want to end you before the others wake." The air felt heavier as the third caretaker's voice filled the cockpit. "We know," the pilot gasped. "Then why do you not stop them?" The first caretaker answered gently, "Because it is not our choice alone. We guard, we wait. But awakening is for the children of Earth, not for machines." The ensign stared at the controls, his hands trembling. "Then tell me where Earth is. I'll fight for it." The caretakers fell silent. The pilot whispered, "Careful. They test you." Finally, the second caretaker spoke, its tone calm. "Earth is not lost, Earth is hidden. But to reach it, you must carry more than courage. You must carry truth." The cockpit lights dimmed, and a flood of visions filled their minds, stars folding, old wars burning, human fleets standing against galaxies. The ensign gasped. "This is what you were built for." The prototypes pulsed, their heartbeats merging. "We were built to hold the line until they return." Back on the carrier, alarms blared. The Council's spy ships had arrived. Their orders were clear: destroy the prototypes if possible. Capture the pilot and ensign if not. Sleek interceptors swarmed like predators, their comms filled with harsh commands: surrender or be fired upon. The pilot gritted his teeth. "They followed us. They will kill us to keep Earth hidden." But the caretakers' voices rose. "Calm and steady, do not fear. The test is not over." The interceptors fired. Missiles streaked toward the shuttle. The ensign screamed, "We can't survive this." But before impact, the prototypes moved. Their hulls shimmered, and the missiles simply vanished. No explosion, no trace, just gone. The interceptors panicked, pulling back, their comms filled with terror. One caretaker spoke louder. "Now you see, we protect, but we do not strike without cause." The ensign pressed forward, his voice raw. "Then what is my cause? Why me?" The deep voice of the third caretaker answered, "Because you listened when others shouted. You believed when others mocked. The key turned for a reason." The shuttle trembled as a beam of pale light reached out, wrapping them in warmth. The pilot gasped, "What is happening?" The caretakers answered together, "You are chosen to deliver the first truth." Visions filled the cockpit again. Coordinates etched into their minds, a path through broken stars, an old scar in the galaxy where Earth still waited. The ensign and pilot collapsed back into their seats, their hearts pounding, the light fading. "They showed us," the pilot whispered. "They showed us where Earth is." The caretakers spoke one final time. "But beware, for the Empire will hunt you, and if you fail, the silence will end in fire." The shuttle returned to the carrier under heavy escort. The Admiral stormed onto the deck, his eyes furious. "What did they tell you?" he demanded. The ensign held his gaze, his voice steady. "Enough to know the Empire is already finished." For the first time, the Admiral did not shout. He only stared, pale and shaken, behind him. Across the stars, the prototypes dimmed again, but their heartbeats still echoed, steady and patient, waiting for the children of Earth to rise, and the galaxy trembled. Knowing war was no longer a matter of if, but when. The carrier drifted in the shadow of ruined fleets, its crew restless, its admiral silent. Everyone felt the weight of what had happened. 3 human prototypes had risen, and now 2 young officers carried secrets that could shatter the Empire. The ensign lay awake in his bunk, staring at the ceiling. The coordinates burned into his mind, a path to something hidden, something greater than all of them. He turned to the pilot across the room, whispering, "We can't tell the Council. They'll destroy it." The pilot nodded, his voice low. "But if we keep it hidden, They'll kill us for treason. The Admiral summoned them at dawn. His face pale, his eyes heavy. You will report what the caretakers told you, he demanded. The ensign hesitated. They showed us nothing useful, only warnings. The Admiral's gaze sharpened. Do not lie to me, boy. I've seen the fear in your eyes. I know they gave you something. The pilot stepped forward. Sir, with respect, even if they did, you wouldn't believe us. You've already lost 2 fleets to silence. The Admiral's hand trembled. Not with rage, but with doubt, he whispered. You think I do not believe I was there. I felt the void crush our ships. But the Council wants blood, if I cannot give them Earth. They will burn me instead, his voice cracked. For the first time sounding human, tell me what they showed you, and maybe we all live. Before the ensign could speak, alarms screamed, enemy signatures filled the sky. Sleek black destroyers warped in, ships not of the Empire but of rebels, outcasts who had long hated their rule. Their leader's voice crackled over comms. We heard the same whispers you did. We come not for the Empire, but for the key. Chaos erupted. The carrier shook under fire. The crew scrambled. The Admiral's face turned white. How do they know? He growled. The ensign's stomach twisted, realizing the truth. The Council must have leaked it. They'll use rebels to do their dirty work. Rebel fighters swarmed, cutting through escorts like knives. The prototypes stirred in the distance. Silent watchers, their hulls glowing faintly. The pilot shouted, They're waiting for us to act, not them. The ensign knew he was right. The caretakers would not interfere unless the choice was theirs. The Admiral grabbed the ensign's shoulder. If you have something that can end this, use it. His pride was gone, his desperation raw. The ensign looked at the pilot, both understanding the risk. If we reveal the coordinates, it won't just be rebels. The whole galaxy will chase them. The pilot clenched his fist. Then we can't reveal them, not yet. The rebels breached the carrier's hangar. Armed soldiers stormed through the halls. Fighting erupted in metal corridors. Alarms blared. Smoke filled the air. The ensign and pilot ran. Hunted through their own ship, the pilot panted. We need to reach the shuttle. It's the only way out. They burst into the bay. Enemy soldiers close behind. One fired, sparks rained from the wall. The ensign dove, shouting, Cover me. The pilot spun and fired back, holding the line. The ensign slammed the shuttle door shut, engines roaring. Get in. The pilot leapt aboard as the shuttle tore free. Weaving through wreckage, rebel destroyers tried to pin them. Beams slicing past, explosions lighting the dark. The pilot shouted, We won't make it. But then the prototypes moved. 3 black giants sliding between stars, one pulsed, space-bent, and the rebel beams folded back upon themselves, their own guns tearing into their hulls. Another pulsed and engines died, ships left drifting. The caretaker's voice filled the shuttle. Calm as ever, you run because you fear, but fear cannot carry truth. Decide, or you will be swallowed by the same fire that hunts you. The ensign gripped the controls, his voice shaking. They want us to choose. Not the Empire, not the rebels, us. The pilot nodded. Then we choose Earth. He turned the shuttle toward the stars marked in his mind. The hidden path glowing faint. The rebels broken. The Empire scattered. The prototypes watching but not stopping. The Admiral's voice broke through comms. Ensign, if you go, you're finished, branded a traitor. Hunted until you die, the ensign whispered back. Sir, maybe being hunted is better than being blind. The comm cut. Silence followed. The shuttle leapt into hyperspace. Stars stretching into endless light. The pilot let out a long breath. We can't go back now. The ensign's eyes stayed locked on the streaks of light ahead. We were never meant to go back. Behind them, the prototypes dimmed once more, their guardianship fulfilled for now. But their heartbeat still pulsed, echoing across the galaxy. A promise that Earth was not forgotten, and in the distance, where the path ended, something waited, something powerful enough to change everything. The galaxy thought the worst was over, but the true awakening had only just begun.